Hey everyone. Hey John. This
Hey,
is
Ted.
DeProgram for Thursday, April 17th, 2025. Thanks for joining us. Lots to talk about as always.
Lots.
Never a dull moment. John, sorry for the late start here. That's my fault. I was late coming
that was my
biking
fault.
back across Central Park from physical therapy for my broken wrist, but it's they say I'm almost done. I'm almost ready.
Yeah, good luck.
So
May it
thank
pass
you.
quickly.
Yeah, it turned out not to be that big a deal. I mean, just don't do that. Just don't break your wrist. It's better not to. Yeah.
I have a friend who was in Rome last week. I'm sorry, he was in Milan last week, and went out for a few weeks. He was walking back to his hotel. He said 4 guys came out of an alley. They were on him before he even realized what was happening. One smashed him with an iron bar and just broke his arm right in two. Took his Rolex, took his wallet, took his phone. Yeah. And he said that the doctor said, as the doctor was resetting his arm, he said that this happens every night in central Milan, but usually people come in with stab wounds, that he was lucky.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Italy, I've been to Italy a bunch of times, and Milan, I have the dumbest Milan story. I was driving everywhere, and my ex-wife and I drive into Milan, and every parking lot was full, and there was no place to park the car. So we were like, screw it. We left Milan, and we never saw Milan.
I've done that at the gym a couple times.
I mean, I was kind of like, Milan's a world-class tourist attraction. I gave up like Columbia University talking to Trump. I mean, it was just, I just rolled. It was like, forget it. There's nothing we can do here. Every parking lot's full.
I wanted to ask you,
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask you if you could relate to our viewers a story that you told me a couple of days ago. I happened to be in New York the other night. Ted and I went out for a few beers. But you said something about Columbia University that troubled me deeply, and I've been thinking about it ever since. Do you mind repeating that?
It
was about the IDs, about needing an ID and even having an ID.
Yeah. So what happened was a couple of I'm an alumnus of Columbia, class of 1991, School of General Studies. I went to the School of Engineering and Applied Science before then, 81 to 84, majored in applied physics, then ended up as a history major, graduated with honors in history, studied under Robert Paxton, the expert on fascism. My senior thesis was about Allied plans to occupy France as an enemy power at the end of World War II. So just to establish my bona fides here. And I worked at the School of General Studies Admissions and Financial Aid Office from 1991 to 1994. So those are my Columbia bona fides. And I'm on their list, or at least I was until recently. I don't know, I haven't checked recently, of their 25 most notable alums, which is totally ridiculous. I should be lucky to be in the top 25,000, but I think cartoonist is sexy, right? So it's like there's only so many like Wall Street titans of industry you can have on a list like that. So, so I was the spice. Anyway, the point is, I have my alumni card. I often go to Columbia to the library to work. It's a very quiet, nice place to work. It brings back fond memories. Looks exactly like it did when I went there in the 80s and 90s. And so anyway, I work on books there. It's a great spot. So anyway, the other day I was like, I'm going to go over there. I want to also just see what's going on. So they've locked all the gates to the campus, which by itself I already knew was the case, but that's very strange because my understanding was that, so first of all, Columbia University runs between Broadway and Amsterdam Avenues in New York, and between 114th and 120th Street. So that's the main central campus. There's a street that goes through it, West 116th Street. That is city property. It belongs to the city of New York. It's a public street. It's a public thoroughfare. And when Columbia struck a deal many decades ago with the university, with the city, that they would pave it over and turn it into part of the campus, but it would always be open to the public so that people could walk through. There's a subway station at 116th and Broadway, so people who live on the other side on the east side of campus, you know, you don't want to have them, some elderly people in particular, walk all the way around campus. They can just walk through 116th Street. That's all locked up. And it has been ever since October 7th, 2023. Wow. And so things have been, you know, so it's very already disconcerting because this used to be really an integrated part of the community. They've set up these tents, these security tents, where you scan your ID. I went over there during the protests about a year ago, and I got scanned in, no problem, no muss, no fuss. The protests were still going on. The encampment was still going on. I beeped in just like a student, right? Beep. I wouldn't have been able to get into, say, a dorm, but I'm not trying to go into a dorm. I'm just trying to go to the library. This time I get and a big red light goes off. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought maybe I don't know, maybe the university heard some of my commentary. No, that's not it. They said, oh, alumni are no longer have the same privileges as before. You still have your ID, but now you have to use your UNI, your university numbered identification, which I never used for anything ever. I didn't even remember what it was. I had to use password recovery to get it. And you use that, you apply for it, and then that's my cat's tail. We can buy Clovis, you monster, there, just so you know what you're doing here. Anyway, so I had to obtain a 1-day QR code through this complicated website process, and then you have to tell them where you're going. Like, you can't say, I'm just going to campus. You can't say, oh, I'm going to go to this library and go to that library, which, you know, you very well might want to. I was like, I'm going to Butler Library, and they're like, and they want you to go straight there. So I walk onto campus, and it's like, you know, those photos of Pyongyang that you see where there's very few people out and about. Pedestrians are just hunkered down. There was no one hanging out on the steps of Low Library, which is the main area where people hang out. There were not two people standing and talking or walking side by side with each other. No students at all. Everyone was individuated. There were very few people, just like head hunkered down, scared. The atmosphere of fear. And I saw, you know, as part of this deal that Colombia struck with the Trump administration just to be able to have a seat at the table to negotiate, they had to agree to hire 30 plus special sort of security squad to make sure nobody's protesting on campus, right? So you know, there's the normal Columbia University security guys who are kind of like, you know, goofs. Like, they're kind of like,
sure,
they're like, you know,
kind of campus cops,
mall cops, you know, type people. And then there's these guys who are, as the Brits would say, hard men. You know, it's a whole different thing. They're serious, and they're walking around with special outfits and, you know, eyeballing everybody. It's terrifying. And perhaps this might have been the most, like, disquieting thing for me. Every college campus in America, community college, Harvard, there's flyers pasted all over the place for student activities, people who need a ride somewhere. There's a movie playing somewhere, room for rent, you name it, right? There's a guest lecture by John Kiriakou, whatever. And like, those were all gone. Every bulletin board, empty. Every place where, like, the book return place, you know, where you drop off your library books, those usually have those signs on there. Gone. He doesn't do that with anyone else. He only does that with you, John. He must like you. So it was very spooky. I came out of it just like, they haven't just destroyed campus protest. They've destroyed campus life completely at that university. Yeah. And, you know, I want to remind people, this is in Manhattan, in New York City, right? The name of Columbia, when you get a letter from them, on their official letterhead, it says Columbia University in the city of New York. That's the official name. And it's like, well, there's no city life here. I mean, it's like, it's dead. And I mean, I worked hard for my Columbia degree. I got it in 2 tranches to get my bachelor's. I went through hell to get it. I've even written books about it, so I'm not going to get into that here. But my point is, I could not in good conscience advise anybody to go there now. And I'm not even talking about like whether you're worried about being cracked in. It's not even like, even if you have no position on the Israel-Palestine conflict, even if you're apolitical, even if you're, an engineering student, completely apolitical, you just, why go there? It sucks. It's like and the thing is, there's no end in sight, right? I mean, they're like, well, this is for the security of the campus community. I mean, I was there during the peak of the encampments. The idea that there was violence or directed towards Jews is a joke. Most of the protesters were Jewish. Most of the demonstrators were Jewish. The main groups were Jewish. I mean, so it's like, these are, I don't know, anti-Semitic Jews.
Right.
This is fictional anti-Semitism that we're talking about here. It's a reaction to something that did not exist. And so, it's, I don't know, John, it was freaky.
Well, let me ask you too, kind of 2 questions. Is there any indication that any of this is happening at NYU, which is of course far south of still in the city of Columbia? And secondly, we had a conversation about the rest of the Ivy League. Is this some kind of a test case for the Trump administration to try to squelch free speech in the Ivy League, just to see how much they can get away with before moving on to other institutions?
It does seem that way. I mean, what's funny is that, like, look, there were protests at every major college, including all the Ivies, in the spring of 2024. But they started at Columbia, the big ones. The idea of the encampment started at Columbia, and then it became like cut and paste. That tactic became cut and pasted all over the country, right? And I think that's why it was about Columbia. I mean, what was peculiar about it was, I mean, it's not like it, let's just say for the sake of argument, you buy the administration's argument wholesale, right? There was anti-Semitism. We're trying to protect Jewish life on campus so that Jews feel safer. Okay, fine. But the point is that Columbia cracked down on the student groups that were protesting. They banned student organizations from protesting. They banned protests. They called in the NYPD not once but twice onto campus to crack down and arrest the demonstrators, which they did by the scores. They had busloads of them arrested. They expelled students. They suspended students. They even, recent graduates, revoked their diplomas. This is all before Donald Trump ever took the oath of office a second time, right?
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, it's kind of like, well, I mean, I'm sure there were people at the table around the trustee's office at Columbia thinking, but we're doing everything that they want. So this isn't really about facts. This is really about, I think what you said, John, it's about setting an example. It's about like, we're just choosing someone to scare them. And so they went with,
and they're succeeding.
Well, and they did. And it's like, it seemed like that was going to set the example. I mean, until Harvard decided to grow a pair and say no. And now, of course, Harvard, the administration, as we're hearing today, is threatening to weaponize the IRS, Richard Nixon style, and and revoke Harvard's tax exempt status, which will never stand legally.
Not a chance.
And Harvard has lawyers too, right? I mean, they make lawyers.
Yes, the best lawyers.
They do. So it's kind of like, I think, look, if anyone can weather the storm, it's Harvard University. It's a bizarre clash of like the old white guys, the old rich white guys. It's so weird. But I mean, I think it's really dispiriting to see, like, now the story is, well, Harvard has a pair as opposed to Columbia, and even Columbia is starting to backpedal a little bit, and I think they realize they've been rolled, and they're trying to. They seem like they might. I think they're going to end up walking away from the table with Trump, because what do they have to show for it except
right
game?
Yeah, that's it. They're just going to have to take to the courts and hope for the best. Yeah, I go to the GW, George Washington University campus a lot. I have both my degrees from GW. And it's different than it used to be. It's different than what it was before October 7th, 2023. But it's not like Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, they asked the university asked the city to send the it's called the MPD here, the Metropolitan Police Department, onto campus to crack down on the tent city and the pro human rights demonstrators, and the city refused. And so they had to use their own rent-a-cops and campus cops to do it. It took them over a month to do it. The only changes that I've seen at GW are that alumni can't get into the library anymore. So
so that's similar, kind of.
Yeah. Even
although
with
we can get in, we just have to jump through hoops.
See, I can't even get in. I have to go to the registrar's office and apply for a new alumni card. I can't just use what they assigned me when I graduated, and I have to apply for a new alumni card to be allowed to go inside the library. I'm going to go give a lecture there at 5:15,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know if they're going to let me in the building. In fact, I got an email from the guy. Actually, let me look at the email real quickly. And I kind of had a chuckle. The class is in room B1, the basement of SMPA at 805 21st Street Northwest. The room is next to the elevators. Entering the building requires a hard pass, which you don't have. So the easiest way is for you to just wait for somebody else to open the door, and then you go in with them. Great. Thank you.
So their security's kicking.
Oh yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah. Campus life isn't what it was. And isn't it funny? We thought that the changes we saw during COVID were onerous. This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And the thing that blows my mind is just the logic of it, right? I mean, it's a lot like after 9/11 when we invaded Afghanistan, and I was criticizing that decision. And a lot of my friends said, come on, you're a New Yorker. Like, we had to do something. And I'm like, it's better to do nothing than to do something stupid. And it's like, I mean, this is stupid. And you don't have to, and here you really don't have to do anything when really nothing much happened in the first place.
No,
there was no 9/11 here.
No, nothing really happened. You're right. I mean,
you show me the Jewish student who, I don't know, ended up at the ER with a broken nose.
Right.
I don't think there is one.
No.
It's like, however, there were some pro-Israeli students at UCLA who physically assaulted, pro-Gaza encampment people. There was some kind of skunky chemical, skanky thing sprayed on protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, Jewish pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia by pro-Israeli people. They were doxxed.
Yes.
It's so funny. The ICE guys who arrest students, they don't, they're not arresting the pro-Israeli students, right, who are not necessarily from the United States.
Right.
And they wear masks, but at Columbia, you're not allowed to wear a face mask anymore, even though 3 years ago you had to.
Oh my God.
You have to check the.
And you have to ask too, legally, how do they even get away with a mandate like that?
Well, it's a private school. They can have what dumb rules they want. They can say, well, you have to you can only wear your underwear on campus. They can say anything they want. Then it's a private school.
How nuts is that? Just like nuts.
It's so the opposite of the school that I went to. My freshman year during orientation, we had a couple of days of talks from upperclassmen, and one of the questions was like, well, what if your roommate does drugs? And because everything was illegal, including weed.
Sure.
And they said, look, work it out with your roommate. It's like the police aren't coming. No one cares. It's fine. You guys do what you want. Well, what if my roommate does hard drugs? so we don't care. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's just work it out. And it's like, and if it's really a problem, you guys can like, change and get another room or something like that. But it was like, that was their attitude.
I want to apologize. One of our viewers is saying that I look blurry. I do look blurry. I don't know what the heck that's all about.
Are you on your phone or on a laptop?
No, I'm on a desktop.
Maybe there's a little condensation on your camera. Just like use like your sleeve and just wipe it. I do that. Like I just go like this, just sort of like, and sometimes it helps. It's just little things. You don't want you to be blurry.
Is that any better? I can't tell. I don't think so. I think I still look blurry.
I don't know. It's maybe it's psychosomatic. I feel like.
Sorry, Stevie. 3011.
Well,
don't know what to make of it.
Problem. Maybe you have an old laptop. Maybe it's the CIA tapping your laptop and draining power from the camera.
That would not surprise me at all. I talked to Kelly Vlahos today from she used to be from the American Conservative magazine, and now she's at I forget the name of the foundation. It's one of the libertarian foundations. Anyway,
that was founded by Pat Buchanan, right?
That's right.
It was always that magazine always perplexed me because I was like, I agree with 75% of everything in here.
Exactly. And they ask me to write all the time for it, and I do when they ask, because I agree with most of what they say.
Yeah, if they ever approached me, I would too. Yeah.
But we were talking about exactly these same issues, beginning with universities and lamenting the loss of civil liberties. I posted this thing on Facebook today, and I hope that it's, well, on the one hand, I hope it's true because I don't want to look like an idiot. On the other hand, I hope it's not true because it makes me fear for my country. It's from Judith. Did you see this from Judith Roberts? Yeah. She's chief judge at Fort Berthold District Court. I don't know where that is. But anyway, she says, as an attorney, I'm deeply alarmed by an incident that occurred just this week and feel compelled to share it to raise awareness of the legal and constitutional crossroads we're rapidly approaching. A coworker of mine who is a judge traveled by train from Montana to North Dakota for work this week. The train made a stop in Havre, Montana, where ICE agents, armed and dressed in full military-style tactical gear, boarded the train. They walked the full length of the train and questioned every single passenger about their citizenship status. According to the conductor, who has worked nearly 40 years on that route, this was a first. In all his decades of service, federal agents have never boarded his train like this. And it goes on to say that the truth of the matter is that ICE is legally permitted to operate within 100 miles of a border. You mentioned this, Ted, last week, and it's, something like 70% of the population is within 100 miles of a border. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but not much. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And so these ICE people were within their legal rights to stop this train and ask for citizenship or proof of citizenship. That doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. That doesn't mean that it's not an assault on our civil liberties. And so it bothers me a lot that it's happening. At the same time, what do we do about it? We had just been discussing, you and Michelle and I had just been discussing how to respond to Homeland Security agents, border customs and border protection agents when we're flying back into the United States and they say, open up your phone or open up your laptop. Then what the heck do we do? So I don't know. It just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And either people don't know or aren't sure what to do to protect their civil liberties. And so because we don't know what to do, we're seeing this erosion that we really can't stop. I'm not sure how to respond.
Yeah, look, it's bad enough that people don't even know things that they really ought to know already. Like, for example, how to handle themselves during a traffic stop. Yeah. Most people don't know. Like, hey, mind if I look in your trunk? You don't have to let them, right? But people don't know.
That was a question. You mind if I look in your trunk? No.
Yes,
Yes, I do
the
mind.
answer is no.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
So do not look. I decline. I do not give you permission to look at my chart. So people don't know that. So here it's like basically everywhere within 100 miles of the border is effectively a port of entry as far as these guys go legally. Now, the main solution here, this is a reminder that when what I'm right now, I don't smoke weed. So please, what I'm about to say sounds really stupid, but really one would hope that if and when Democrats ever return to power, that they would repeal the law that authorizes ICE to operate within 100 miles of the border and only at authorized points of entry to the United States, like ports and, like naval ports and airports and so on, bus terminals from Canada. But they shouldn't be able to pull over a train and act like it's Nazi Germany and demand papiers. I mean, I don't even know, by the way, you don't have to carry ID in the United States, right?
No, you're not compelled by law to carry ID.
So let's just say you didn't have any, or you choose not to present it. The problem is then the ICE guys, they can say, well, legally, they can say, we don't know that this person's a citizen or not. It's just out of an abundance of caution, we're going to detain them until we figure out who they are. And they can scoop you up and send you off to
El Salvador.
They sure can, legally.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like, two guys on YouTube talking shit, but it's actually true.
It's true.
And it's so like that's the thing. You're in this terrible position, right? Like you're carrying a U.S. passport or a U.S. passport card. I always have mine with me, and it's like so these goons come on, and you're scared, but you're like, oh, at least I'll be okay. I can show it. I'll be okay. And that's the problem is that everybody's thinking I'll be okay, and then sure, someone else might not be okay, right? If everybody refused, if every time they tried this, all hell broke loose. Let's just say that story that your friend shared on, let's just say it was like, oh, the ICE agents came on and all hell broke loose. People were throwing things at them. Hundreds of people were arrested. They were angry. They started screaming. There was disorder. Local police had to come. And they do that over and over. And every person freaks out. I guarantee you it would stop. But it just, that's not how we're wired. It's like, I mean, I'm no braver than anybody else. I mean, I would, here's my ID, officer,
And like so many police departments across the country too, these guys have been utterly militarized. So they came on with long guns. They're in military fatigues. Why?
Kevlar.
Yeah, why? Why are you in Kevlar and military fatigues on the border of North Dakota and Montana? What's that all about?
Right. And that train is all a bunch of old people, they just want to look at the mountains as they drink their coffee.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it bothers me very, very much. It bothers me also that, gosh, who said it? Was it you that said it on Twitter or Facebook? Let me get this right. Was that you that said, let me get this right? We stood up to the Russians, we stood up to the Iranians, but we cower in the great presence of the president of El Salvador.
No, that was someone else.
Oh, somebody that I'm friends with on Facebook or something. So Chris Van Hollen, the senior senator from Maryland, went to El Salvador because this poor guy from Maryland was illegally taken and sent to this super prison that holds 30,000 people in El Salvador. Now, one of the things that I noticed today and yesterday that's been bothering me very much is the likes of CNN and MSNBC and the Washington Post, the New York Times are saying, oh my God, this American citizen was sent to El Salvador. The courts have ordered the administration to bring him back, and the White House is ignoring them. But Fox and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post and the likes of those outlets are saying MS-13 gangbanger refused right to return to U.S.
Right.
He's not been convicted of any crime. He's not even been accused of being a member of MS-13 or any other gang.
Nope.
What's that all about? And really the question is, if this can happen to this one guy, it could certainly happen to all of us, right?
Well, and that's not according to just us. That's according to the president, right? He said on television, anyone can find it. We need to go after the homegrowns.
Yeah, the homegrown, exactly.
Never heard that term before. Homegrowns, i.e., U.S.-born people who, for whatever reason, are enemies of the state, and he wants to get rid of. And he claims to be looking into ways to do that. I mean, once you start stripping people, it's not even denaturalizing them because they're not even naturalized in the first place. But when you strip their nationality and deprive them of rights, I mean, it's already a police state. Yeah. But the question is, now you're in full blown fascism for sure. Yeah. And he's talking, and the president of El Salvador says he's probably going to expand the prison fivefold to accommodate American prisoners, many of whom are U.S. citizens, to outsource. He said, the president says, it'll be a lot cheaper. I mean, okay, so with Trump, you always have to ask, is this just toxic trolling of the libs, or does he mean it? I mean, I do think that what he's doing I think what happened is they really did accidentally. They screwed up when they sent this guy.
But they keep doubling down on it, though.
And they're afraid, right? They're afraid that if they bring him back, first of all, he may not be alive. I'm not sure I believe that he's alive. He may or may not be. But they're afraid of whatever story he has to tell. He's going to talk about the other guys he met who themselves are not members of gangs. He's going to have stories to tell they're not going to want to hear. But also, it sets the precedent. If you can send a guy back, then everybody can go to court and get due process and get redress and maybe be sent back to the States. I mean, basically, it reminds me a lot of that quote in the Bush administration where there was that anonymous quote that appeared in the New York Times that said, other people, they don't understand. We make history and we do our thing and everyone else is just going to watch while we change everything. And I think that's the attitude here. It's like the facts, everything's going to be about the facts on the ground. Never mind your theoretical constitutional rights or your ability, your habeas corpus or whatever. It's like, it's going to be de facto. Oops. Oh, we sent you to El Salvador. We can't get you back. And then you have this timid, I'm not sure the U.S. Supreme Court really gets it, right? I think they're still kind of behaving like this is a normal president, a normal presidency. It's not. And, neither of us suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. We've both been fair to this president. But this is very disturbing.
One of our viewers, Nick, makes a good point. Isn't this just another form of rendition?
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yes. There's no due process. You're just kidnapped and sent someplace else. Actually, it's not even rendition. It's extraordinary rendition. Rendition is, let's say I'm a CIA guy in Pakistan. I catch you. You're from Tunisia. I send you back to Tunisia. That's a rendition.
Okay.
An extraordinary rendition is if I'm a CIA guy in Pakistan, I catch you. You're from Tunisia, and I send you to Jordan. And I don't tell Tunisia that I've gotten you and I've sent you to Jordan. That's an extraordinary rendition. Well, if this guy is American, let's say he's of Mexican descent, I think it was Mexican, and they send him to this gulag in El Salvador, yeah, that's an extraordinary rendition.
Well, Abrego Garcia is actually confusing the issue as he's Salvadorian.
He's Salvadorian?
Yes, so that's a problem.
That is a problem.
Right? Because basically the Trump administration is saying, well, we just returned him to his home country.
But there was no due process in the first place.
Right.
If this guy has committed a grave crime and you're going to strip him of his green card, there's a process for that.
Right.
You go to court and you strip him of his green card, and then you can expel him.
Just like Mahmoud Khalil, they exactly try to do that. Yeah.
Exactly right. Speaking of which, not Mahmoud Khalil, but the Turkish PhD candidate from Tufts, just this morning, a federal judge ruled that she does not have to be offered bail. She can continue to be held without bail. But she hasn't committed a crime, is the thing. She's not even accused of having committed a crime. She's accused of having spoken out in support of Palestinian human rights.
Correct.
No bail. Same as if she were a mass murderer. No bail.
Wow. And then, of course, we should not forget the crazy case of the another Columbia student who was lured to his citizenship hearing, where he was he thought he was about to become the last step to becoming a U.S. citizen.
Yes.
And instead, I mean, he did smell a rat. So he did have a lawyer on standby just in case. And also he's a resident of Vermont. So he got in touch with Senator Bernie Sanders and I forget who the other senator is from Vermont. Right. And then also his congressperson.
Welch.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were, presumably somewhat attentive to that. But the important thing is his case now remains in Vermont, even though he may not be in Vermont, but his case is in Vermont. He may be off to Louisiana, right, sharing a cell.
Oh yeah, and that's the danger, is they're all shipped off to Louisiana, where Trump has stacked the federal courts and is confident that he's going to get a friendly ruling. Just as an aside, I know I mentioned this to you when we got together on Monday, but I was very pleasantly interested to see that when the video was used on the big news outlets of this poor guy in Vermont being led away in handcuffs after showing up to take his citizenship test, it said video courtesy of Chris Halali, who was a regular on our shows at Sputnik. Chris is out. Actually, Chris is from Vermont, and somehow Chris smelled a rat too. I'm glad that he was there to document it.
I mean, there's all sorts of consequences here. I mean, obviously, I have speculated on what could happen if someone ever decides to defend themselves, from being abducted by unidentified people. But also, who's ever going to believe anything that ICE says, right? I mean, who's going to cooperate with them? I mean, the smart move now is to just lay low. Don't, if you see something, don't say something.
That's right.
You have the IRS has agreed to turn over data that could point to people who might be here illegally, something that was never supposed to happen. The local police used to be told, don't cooperate with ICE. If they see a criminal, we want them to get in touch. You're not going to do anything like that. You're just going to, you're going to go deep into the shadows. And now we have this constitutional crisis. I mean, very clearly the president has decided to scoff at a federal court judge. And I mean, the U.S. Supreme Court gave him a little bit of wiggle room by saying, okay, well, we're not going to tell you exactly how to get this guy back from El Salvador, but do what you can. But he's not done anything, right?
No, literally nothing. And then they wouldn't turn the guy over to Chris Van Hollen when he went down to talk to him.
Yeah. Or they wouldn't even let him see him.
No, wouldn't even let him see him. Something happened to a cousin of mine to whom I'm very close that is kind of a further indication that we've entered into this twilight zone as it relates to visas and permission to be in the country. My cousin got up very early to go to the airport. He lives way up in Maryland. He had to drive to Dulles Airport, so it's about a 2-hour drive. So he gets up 5 o'clock in the morning, gets in the car. He goes to a 7-Eleven for coffee. When he pulled in very close to the car in the next space, right? So the guy gets out of his car, my cousin gets out of his car, and the guy in the other car was Hispanic of some nationality, I don't know. And he says, hey, you parked too close to my car. My cousin's like, whatever, no big deal. They go into the 7-Eleven to get coffee. My cousin's pouring his coffee, and the guy's following him. Like, yeah, move your car. Go out there and move your car. You're too close to my car. Words were exchanged.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin gets in his car and drives away. The next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, a dozen cops break down his door with a battering ram.
What?
And hold my cousin and his wife. And my cousin's like 68. His wife is 67 or 68. Both of them being held at gunpoint. They're in their, pajamas. They're both cuffed and laying on the floor. He's charged with 6 different gun and hate crime offenses, because what this guy did was he called the cops and said, this guy pulled into a parking space next to my car at the 7-Eleven, and when I told him he was too close to me, he pulled a gun and called me a dirty Mexican. Well, no such thing ever took place.
There's probably security camera footage at the 7-Eleven.
There was. And so my cousin insisted on going to trial. And it turned out that the State Department offers something called a U visa. Now, I was a commissioned consular officer, and I never heard of a U visa. It's relatively new. And what it is an emergency visa that can be given to somebody who is a witness to a crime. And it's open-ended. And so this guy thought, you know what? I'm going to make up this crime.
Hate crime.
A hate crime. I'm going to drag it out as long as I can. And maybe Trump won't be president by the time I finally get a hearing. And I can just stay.
Oh my God.
But he wasn't thinking about camera footage.
Reporting.
Yeah. And so now he's got a serious case against the, whatever it is, Frederick County, Maryland Police Department. But yeah, now this is something else we have to worry about.
They never heard of a doorbell?
I know, right? 6 o'clock in the morning. All the neighbors, of course, come out of their houses to stand there and look. While my cousin's being led away in cuffs.
Knock on the door at, say, 9 a.m. and say, hey, listen, can we talk to you? This guy's right. Get a feel for it.
A U visa.
Huh.
Outrageous.
So that's kind of like it's kind of like a new upscale version of pretending that you rear-ended someone's car.
Yeah.
And
right.
Then they shake you down for money.
That's right. They back into you at a red light.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like a thing now. Like,
God, I hope
migrants are talking about that, like on Facebook groups and stuff like that.
It's crazy. And to make matters worse, he and his wife went to buy a condo months after the fact. And it wasn't a condo; it was a co-op. And the co-op board is like, "Whoa, you've got an arrest here for hate crime. What the heck is that?"
Oh my God!
Yeah,
it's not done yet, right? It's not
it's finally done, but the arrest is on your record forever,
which it shouldn't be.
So he had to go back to court and ask for the judge to throw out and expunge. That's right, the arrest record.
Wow.
Yeah, nice country we live in.
I know, it's just so insane. Like, you just keep thinking, like, if you just tell the truth, you'll be fine.
Yeah, right. You'd think.
And this will also make people just avoid. It'll make citizens avoid dealing with anyone they suspect might not be a citizen. Just like, I'm just not going to have anything to do with you. Yeah. And there's this law. You can go, like, let's just say, like, I have a friend who's an illegal immigrant, and I say, you can stay at my place until all this shit blows over. I can go to prison and be fined thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes,
for knowingly harboring an illegal immigrant. It has to be knowing, but
yes.
It's different if you just say, like, hey, Miguel, if you need to crash, well, did you know? Well, I didn't check. But yeah, I mean, it's truly terrifying.
Sure is.
I mean, so I was reading Ezra Klein thing today, and what if someone he interviewed said, like, well, the courts aren't going to save us. Well, if it's not the courts, who? I mean, they're the only ones who have the power. The Republican Party is clearly not going to do anything. They're in charge of the government. I mean, how far can this go, do you think, before
Well, I would give you a different answer if I had any trust or faith at all in the Democratic Party, which I do not. Zero faith and trust in the Democratic Party. So I have to agree with you. If the courts either can't or won't save us, we're screwed. We're screwed until there's a big enough, Democratic majority in both houses of Congress and a sitting Democratic president, like Barack Obama had for a minute. Well, I guess it was just the year 2010. It was 59-41 Democratic senators, and then Arlen Specter switched parties and made it 60-40, and they could actually get stuff passed. But I mean, that's a once in a generation kind of thing. And if you look at the electoral map for 2026, the Democrats are worried about losing more Senate seats, so it's not going to change.
Right.
If the courts aren't going to help, then there is no help.
Do you think the U.S. Supreme Court, I mean, they've got to be paying close attention.
I think that they are increasingly independent of Donald Trump this term. I think they fell into line last term. This term is different. We're seeing now on Breitbart, for example, condemnation of Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett. Condemnation of John Roberts on Fox News. So I think that maybe there's a chance that the Supreme Court will put some brakes on this stuff.
I mean, because it's like, it's just not the same country anymore if they don't, right?
It's not the same country. And we're starting to see it now with this dramatic drop in the number of tourists coming to the United States.
Yeah, that's true.
It's dramatic.
Yeah, people don't want to come here anymore. I don't blame them.
Yeah. Just so far this year, France #1 and Spain #2 have more tourists than the United States.
Wow,
that's incredible to me.
Yeah, France is the size of Texas. Yeah, I mean, look, it's obviously a big tourist destination, but still.
Yeah.
So, I mean, John, I'm at a loss.
I am too. I'm worried.
I'm worried too. I do think these people, that Trump and the people around him, they've lost their minds. The media is weak and wimpy, not able or willing to do anything. And the Democrats aren't willing to do anything either. I mean, I think they should shut down the government. I think I think they should impeach Trump. I think they should go after him. I mean, this has to stop. But we all learned about the rise of fascism in the 30s. Why didn't anyone do anything? Well, here we are. This is why nobody does anything, because it's hard. And no one wants to be first. No one wants to be alone.
Hey, what do you make of you know what? I'll preface my comments with my own biases. Bernie Sanders always gets huge crowds, and then nothing ever happens. Right. So now Bernie Sanders and AOC are on this national speaking tour. And again, they're drawing gigantic crowds to the point where there was an op-ed in the New York Post today, of all places, saying that, believe it or not, like it or not, AOC is potential presidential material. Do you think that this is going to make any difference at all? Does anybody care what Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have to say about any of these issues? Or are they just voices in the wind?
I don't think anyone cares.
I don't either.
I think it's like a concert tour.
Yes.
I think basically they're rock stars
preaching to the choir.
Yeah. And they are rock stars within the progressive left wing of the Democratic Party. There's no denying the message. Look, I respect Bernie Sanders a lot. He was in the wilderness, being ridiculed and mocked for decades until finally the country caught up with what he had to say. And I respect the fact that he's like, I'm not running anymore. I'm too old. I respect that. even though he's in much better shape than Biden was. And, I respect what AOC's managed to do. But basically what this is what we used to call like star fuckery. That's what this is. They're star fucking. And it's not about the people. And it's kind of like, okay, so they go and meet, they like fight oligarchy. What does that mean? What does it look like? And, it's still within the context of the Democratic Party. I mean, it's not lost on anyone that, what the Democratic Party did to Bernie Sanders. And it's like, they had a chance to have a progressive president. They didn't want one. The Democratic Party didn't want one. The public, most of the voters did. So, I mean, I guess you could say, well, Ted and John, you guys are just whinging and, what are you doing? They're out there doing something. It's like, they're just whinging too. They're just whinging for more money. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like if you're not building a grassroots organization, if they're not there on site saying, okay, we need everybody to pass to, we want everybody to agree to, when you leave here, we need to get your name and your phone number and your email address. We're going to be in touch, and we're going to mobilize you guys to create a national movement to start getting candidates elected at the local level and so on. If you're not doing that, what's the point? Maybe they are doing that. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say, I always had a soft spot for Bernie Sanders. I've told the story a million times, but when I was working on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee staff, I had this routine where I'd go into the office, turn on my computer. These computers were so old, it would take them 20 minutes to boot up. And while it was booting up, I would go down to the basement of the Dirksen Senate office building and get a cup of coffee. And every single day, Bernie Sanders was sitting at the very first table. He invited everybody who came down into the cafeteria to sit with him and to talk about any issue you wanted to talk about. He didn't care if you weren't from Vermont. And the only thing he insisted on was that you call him Bernie. That was it. He was awesome. Completely and totally down to earth, good guy. But then the Democratic National Committee instituted a coup against him where, and I've complained about this in the past, he wins 60% in the West Virginia and Wyoming caucuses and got 0 delegates. 0. It was a coup against Bernie in favor of Hillary Clinton. And
Iowa also.
Iowa's the same thing.
We forgot to send someone to count your delegates.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And AOC, when push really came to shove, she fell right into line with the Democratic National Committee. And, I was thinking this morning, I made a joke on an earlier podcast I did that we're supposed to say, oh, that's okay. Pete Buttigieg is going to save us from all this. Or Amy Klobuchar is going to save us from all this. Come on. Name one Democrat, one single Democrat that might have broad-based appeal. I can't think of one. Not a single one. And so instead of bitching about or lamenting the fact that we don't have a viable third party, vote your conscience. We don't have a viable third party because people say, well, the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils is still evil. And so if you're serious about changing things, vote third party. That's what I've done consistently.
Me too. Every election, we're always told, well, you can vote third party next time. I always like to point out that if it wasn't for third parties, the Republican Party wouldn't exist. They were a third party.
They were the third party. Exactly.
And so, and like tied for fourth, right? I mean, they were with the constitutionalists who were now forgotten.
And they absorbed the Whigs.
Yes, they did.
They did.
And so basically it's a ridiculous, I mean, it's very frustrating because it's true. There's only, people say, well, one of these two parties is going to win. That's undeniably true. I'm not living in a fantasy world where I think, but if we all just cross our fingers, then, Jill Stein will be president. No, but here's the thing. I don't believe that will happen. But what I do know is I don't want either the Democratic or the Republican. And the Democrat is not like moving, is not sort of like on a continuum that's noticeably better than the Republican on a lot of issues that I care about. Therefore, it's like, well, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The problem is the Democrat's not good.
Right.
So,
that's the problem I have.
I'm like, you guys can, you can send migrants to Salvadorian gulags. And by the way, Democrats have, Bill Clinton was the deporter in chief. And I looked up all these numbers recently. He deported 12 million people over the course of 8 years. So, I mean, you guys can deport. You can, extraordinary rendition people. You can do whatever the fuck you want, start whatever stupid wars you want, but you're going to do it without my vote. And like, it's not going to, you probably won't miss it, but at least you will be doing it without me. You're not, that's just the way I look at it. And, if there was some crazy miracle and I woke up and Jill Stein or someone like her were president, I'd be like, that's fantastic. So
agreed.
It's not like I'm and people are like, well, you're a perfectionist. It's like, you're a purist. Not a purist.
No.
I disagree with Jill Stein about all sorts of things.
Sure.
But I mean, it's like, it's one thing to be like, okay, well, I think the minimum wage should be $40 an hour and you think it should be 18. Okay, well, we disagree about that, but but we're on the same page that it should go up.
Right.
So, that's not, but the Democrats have been sitting on the minimum wage since 2009.
Exactly. And don't even bother to try to make it a campaign issue.
AOC, do you think she has, I feel like she doesn't have it for a national presidential campaign. Not yet.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so either.
There's that sort of intangible thing that you need to have. I think Pete Buttigieg is the man to beat if you're running for the Democratic nomination in 28.
That's probably right. But Michelle and I used to talk about this all the time. He is, I would say, the worst transportation secretary in the history of the Republic. And if you can't run, did I say ministry? Transportation department. Yeah, in the history of the country.
Same difference.
Yeah, same difference. I don't know. I'm just not. Yeah, he's a very smart guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but
he's very articulate.
Very articulate.
We don't see a lot these days.
Yeah. I don't know. I do hate to say that I have to jump off for another podcast in 1 minute, so I'm deprogrammed. I don't know about you.
I'm fully deprogrammed, I think. So we'll let everyone know when we're coming back. I suspect it's going to be next week. We should probably try to do 2 next week.
Yes,
if
indeed.
You're around, John. We'll work out our schedule offline. Go do your other podcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And see you
Bye,
next
everybody.
Bye.